While I was out of town, my sister broke into my house, changed the lock, and told me the house was no longer mine, that it was compensation for not lending her money. So I called the police. I'm 42 female and live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I work in a machine shop. Been doing it for almost 20 years. I'm the woman who clocks in, does her work, and keeps to herself. I don't need much, just my tools, a working truck, and peace at home. I've been married to Carlos for 13 years. We don't have kids, and honestly, that's been fine. We focused on building a stable life. A little 2-bedroom home we bought after saving for years. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. Paid off most of the mortgage already. We've worked for everything. No handouts, no shortcuts. Carlos's younger sister Diana has always been the complete opposite. She's 35, still chasing pipe dreams. Every 6 months, it's something new. Drop shipping, crypto, flipping real estate with no money, some app idea. She's too lazy to build. She's lived with their mom, off and on crashed with friends, and even stayed on our couch a few times in the early days. Never held a job longer than a year, always blaming everyone else. I kept quiet about it for years for Carlos's sake. He loved his sister even if she drove him crazy. And to be fair, when we first got married, Diana still had a little charm. She was funny, made people laugh, had this way of talking like she was on the verge of something big. But now she was just a leech with a big ego. 6 months ago, back in December, Diana called me out of nowhere. Carlos was at work. She asked to borrow $15,000. Said she had this new Amazon FBA thing she was getting into with a woman from Philly. Supposedly it was a sure thing. She had a whole pitch prepared like she was on Shark Tank. I told her flat out, no, not rude, just clear. We just put a ton of money into remodeling our kitchen. Carlos had taken a temporary pay cut. I wasn't throwing $15,000 into a black hole. She got quiet for a second. Then she said, I'm not asking for a handout. It's a loan. I said, yeah, and you still haven't paid back that $300 from February 2019. She hung up. 10 minutes later, I get a text from Carlos. What did you say to Diana? She's blowing up my phone. Then a few messages came through in the family group chat. Diana went off, called me controlling, said I was trying to keep her and Carlos apart. Said I was bitter because I never took risks and lived like a scared little woman. Carlos shut it down quick. Told her not to talk about me like that. Told her I had every right to say no, but I could feel the shift. She went silent after that. No texts, no calls. I figured that was it, but it wasn't. Fast forward to a Tuesday in March, 3 months later. Cold, what kind of day? What kind of... Carlos was out of town at a work conference in Denver. I just gotten off a long shift and stopped to pick up a sandwich on the way home. I pulled into the driveway and noticed something off. The porch light was on. That was weird because it's on a timer and it shouldn't have been on yet. I got to the front door and slid in my key. It didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. I stood there confused, checking to make sure I had the right key. I did so, I knocked. No answer. I called Carlos. He didn't pick up. Then I texted, hey, something's weird. My key's not working. Did you change the locks? Still nothing. Then the porch light flicked on. A second later, the door opened just to crack, and there was Diana wearing one of my old work t-shirts, drinking a beer, standing in my doorway. My gut went cold. What the hell are you doing here? I asked. She smirked and said, this isn't your house anymore. I blinked. Thought maybe I misheard. What? You made your choice when you turned your back on family. She said like she was quoting some movie villain. I told her to quit screwing around and open the door. She stepped back a little and leaned against the frame. Still drinking, still smiling. You refused to help me, so I helped myself, she said. Carlos said I could stay here anytime I needed. You're the outsider now. Then she shut the door in my face. I stood there in shock. At first I thought maybe it was some prank. Maybe Carlos had told her she could stay while he was gone, but he would have told me. No way he'd spring that on me. I pounded on the door again. No answer. It started to rain. I stood there soaked, staring at the door. I kept calling Carlos. Still no answer. Then it hit me. Diana had changed the locks. She'd probably gotten a locksmith to come out, used some forged paperwork claiming to be Carlos's wife, and got the place rekeyed. I later found out she'd used a fake ID and lease agreement. She'd become pretty good at creating fake documents for her scams, and now she was sitting inside my house drinking my beer, wearing my shirt. I felt this mix of rage and panic. I wasn't about to break a window and get arrested trying to get into my own damn house. I needed to be smart. So I called Jessica. Jessica and I go way back. She's a cop, helped me fix up her old Ford F-150 last winter, and she owed me one. I told her what happened. She didn't even ask questions. Said she was 5 minutes away and would bring backup. 15 minutes later, 2 squad cars pulled up. Jessica walked to the porch, knocked loud. Diana answered again. This time she looked more nervous. "What's the problem, officer?" she asked like she was reading a script. Jessica didn't play along. "You don't live here, you're not on the deed. The homeowner is standing right there and she says you weren't invited." Diana started stammering. "Carlos said my brother said I could stay here anytime and you don't get to change the locks on someone else's home." Jessica said, "You have 5 seconds to come out or we'll come in." Diana stood frozen. Then she tried to argue, but it was too late. They pushed in. Next thing I know, Jessica's dragging Diana out by the arm. Diana's yelling, "I'm family." She's not family. She's a control freak. "This is my brother's house." Neighbors came out. Someone filmed it. I didn't care. They cuffed her and took her to the station for trespassing and illegal entry. Later that night, Carlos flew home early. He was horrified. Turns out months ago he told Diana offhand in a casual moment that if she ever hit rock bottom she could stay in our guest room. But that was before she burned every bridge before the loan fight. He never meant for her to move in without telling me. Definitely not change the locks and throw me out. We found out she'd sold some of our stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Used his old credit card she found in a drawer, ordered food liquor. God knows what else. We pressed charges. The days after Diana got dragged out were a blur. Carlos was back home trying to hold it together, but he was shaken. I was pissed, and I stayed that way. We went room by room checking everything. She'd gone through drawers, closets, even our locked file cabinet in the office. Somehow forced it open. A bunch of personal stuff was missing. Old photos, Carlos's watch collection, some signed baseball cards I had from when I was a kid. Gone. We filed a police report and started checking pawn shops. That's when the second wave hit. She hadn't just squatted. She'd been pretending she owned the house. There were emails on Carlos's laptop. She'd logged into his Gmail that showed she tried to list the house for rent on Craigslist. A fake ad with photos of our living room and backyard said it was a luxury home for professionals, furnished utilities included. She'd been talking to people like a landlord. One man even stopped by while we were home. He pulled into the driveway with his teenage daughter and asked, "Is this the house that was listed online? I have a viewing appointment with Diana." I nearly lost it. Carlos had to calm me down. The man was confused and embarrassed, said Diana had sent him pictures and promised a move-in date. Thank God he hadn't given her a deposit yet, but someone else had. A woman from Jersey sent her $800 through Venmo to hold the room. That's when I really understood what Diana was doing. She wasn't just mooching, she was running a scam out of our house. Carlos took it hard. He kept blaming himself. I should have never said she could stay here. I never thought, God, I feel so stupid. I told him it wasn't his fault. No one expects their own sister to do something this insane, but it wasn't over yet. A week after the arrest, Diana got out on bond. We got served with a petition for emergency residence rights. I didn't even know that was a thing. Apparently, Diana was trying to claim that Carlos had verbally granted her Kyo resident status and that she had an expectation of housing based on a family agreement. She submitted fake emails and texts to try to back it up. Messages that looked like they came from Carlos, saying stuff like, "You always have a place here. You can stay as long as you need." They were doctored. He never wrote those. Our lawyer got involved fast. We handed over phone records, security footage, everything. But Diana didn't stop. She kept showing up at the end of our street, just sitting in her car staring at the house. Sometimes she'd leave trash in our driveway, empty beer cans, takeout bags, always the same car, beat-up green Honda Civic with duct tape on the bumper. One night I went out to take the trash and found one of my missing baseball cards shoved in the mailbox, torn in half, just sitting there like a threat. I felt like I was losing it. We added a restraining order to the case, but those take time, and until it was final, Diana kept testing the line. Then came the second twist. Carlos's mom called. Now she's not exactly a fan of mine. Always thought I masculinized her son and made Carlos too serious. But this time she was dead serious. She told Carlos she'd kicked Diana out a few days earlier. Diana had shown up drunk, demanding she call us and fix everything. When she refused, Diana trashed her living room. Flipped the coffee table, broke a lamp. She called the cops too, but Diana took off before they showed up. And here's the kicker. Carlos's mom told us Diana had been planning something for weeks. She had told her straight up, if Rachel won't lend me the money, I'll just move in and force her out. Carlos will take my side. She'll leave. He'll realize I'm the only family he's got. She planned to break us up. She thought if she squatted long enough and stirred the pot, Carlos would take pity on her and kick me out. She really believed that. That was her whole game. That was when I snapped. I wasn't just dealing with a freeloader. I was dealing with a manipulator, one who thought she could wedge herself between me and my husband and take over my life. I called Jessica again, told her I wanted to press every possible charge, not just trespassing, but fraud, identity theft, attempted real estate fraud, breaking and entering, credit card theft, harassment, everything. And Jessica told me something I didn't expect. She said, "You're not the only one. Diana has prior small stuff, but there's a pattern. She's pulled cons like this before, just never this big." I asked why nobody ever warned us, Jessica said. Because most of the victims were family. They dropped the charges. Not this time, Carlos. And I doubled down. We froze our credit, added extra surveillance, got legal counsel. The more we dug, the more we found. We even discovered she'd been taking mail from our mailbox while we were at work. A neighbor had caught it on camera once, but didn't know who she was. She'd intercepted a bank statement and a credit card offer. It was full-blown identity theft. Now I was furious, but also determined. I wasn't going to just kick her out. I was going to bury her in consequences. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Carlos found out he was being investigated by his company's HR department. They'd gotten an anonymous tip that he was involved in housing fraud, that he knowingly let a criminal live in his home to commit scams. They didn't say who submitted it, but we knew Diana was trying to ruin his job too. Carlos's face was pale when he got off the phone with HR. They said they weren't making accusations yet, just doing a routine inquiry after a tip came in. He works for a financial firm. Regulations are tight. If they even think you're involved in fraud or sketchy activity, they can suspend you while they investigate. That's exactly what they did. He was placed on leave pending review, effective immediately. That was the moment Diana stopped being a screw-up in our eyes. She wasn't just some loser with bad luck. She was vindictive, calculated. She didn't just want a place to stay. She wanted to destroy us. I called Jessica again, told her about the anonymous report in Carlos's job. She told me to hold tight, that she was already working on something. Apparently, the fake rental ad and the Venmo messages had pushed things into a more serious category, fraud, with intent to profit off stolen property. And now with the mail theft and the HR report, we had enough for a full criminal investigation. But it was too slow for me. So I started digging on my own. I remembered Diana had left her old cracked iPhone on the coffee table the night she was arrested. I'd thrown it in a drawer, meaning to hand it off to police, but forgot. Carlos said it didn't have a lock screen, so I powered it up. Sure enough, it turned on, and I found everything. She had a notes app full of plans. I'm talking step-by-step schemes like something out of a bad movie. She had titles for each scam. The break-in, bluff, sibling leverage, move house lockdown plan, backup, HR scare report, anonymous tip link. She'd listed goals, steps, and even scripts for how to talk to the cops, how to lie to Carlos, and what to say to get a locksmith to change the locks without ID. There were screenshots of forged texts between her and Carlos. She'd used a fake texting app to create phony conversations and save them as proof. There were Venmo records showing payments from at least 3 different people. Some of them had rent deposit or utilities included in the memo. It was a goldmine of evidence. But the worst part, she had a to-do list for what came after she got rid of me. Once Rachel is out, file restraining order. She's aggressive. Will look believable. Contact lawyer friend. Fake a lease agreement. Get Carlos back on my side. Remind him about mom's setup. GoFundMe. Wrongfully removed from home by sister-in-law. Move into master bedroom. Change utilities to my name. New car. I sat there shaking, not with fear, with rage. This wasn't just some jerk squatting. This was a full-blown long con, and we'd been the target for who knows how long. I made copies of everything. Sent it to Jessica, our lawyer, and the HR office at Carlos's company. I also printed hard copies and stored them in 3 different places just in case. The fallout was immediate. HR dropped their review of Carlos after seeing the forged texts in Diana's notes. They called the tip malicious interference and flagged it for internal legal action. Carlos was reinstated with full pay and an apology from the regional manager. But Diana didn't know we had the phone, so while she thought we were still scrambling to recover, she went ahead and did the dumbest thing yet. She tried to file a civil claim against me. She claimed emotional damage, said I physically threatened her during the eviction, and even attached a fake medical report saying she had stress-induced panic attacks and recurring trauma from the police. She was trying to sue me for $50,000. The audacity made me laugh out loud for the first time in weeks. Then I sent my lawyer everything from the phone. Around the same time, more cracks started to show. One of the people Diana scammed with a fake rental ad came forward with texts and screenshots. Another found her through a Facebook landlord group and sent a full email chain showing Diana posing as Diana R. with a fake Gmail address. We handed it all over to police. Our lawyer pushed the DA to consolidate everything: trespassing, fraud, identity theft, harassment, false police statements, forged communications. But Diana didn't stop. Not yet. She started going after my reputation next. Someone left a 1-star review on the machine shop's Google listing. Said I was violent, unstable, and a known racist. 2 more reviews popped up the same week. One claimed I threatened a coworker with a weapon. I've never even had an HR complaint in 20 years. My boss called me and asked what the hell was going on. I knew immediately. Every review came from a newly created account with no history, all posted within minutes of each other, all traced back to one IP address, Diana's. That was the final straw for me. This wasn't about a lock or a room or money anymore. This woman, this sister-in-law, wanted to erase my life piece by piece. She wanted to break my marriage, ruin my job, steal my home, and play victim while doing it. She picked the wrong woman. And the revenge I was planning, it wasn't just going to be about karma, it was going to be permanent. I never wanted war with Diana. All I ever asked for was peace in my home, respect for my husband, and basic human decency. But Diana spit on every one of those things. She kicked me out of my own house. She tried to scam strangers, defame me, ruin my marriage, and cost my husband his job. So I decided to end it once and for all with truth, law, and just enough humiliation to make it sting forever. It started with the criminal charges. Thanks to the notes we found on her phone, combined with Venmo receipts, text scams, and camera footage, Diana got hit with identity theft, credit card fraud, trespassing, harassment, defamation, attempted real estate fraud, filing a false police report, and civil fraud related to her bogus lawsuit against me. The DA didn't just file, they went hard. The judge signed a no-contact order, and Diana was picked up a second time. This time without warning. No chance to run. No time to prepare. They cuffed her in the parking lot of the sleazy motel she was crashing in. Apparently, she'd gotten into it with another guest the night before. Fists were thrown. Cops already had her name in a report. She didn't know that when she opened that motel room door, there were already 5 warrants waiting, but that wasn't even the satisfying part. That came during her arraignment. Carlos and I sat in the second row behind the prosecution. Diana came in cuffed, wearing an old hoodie with holes in the sleeves and mismatched sneakers. She looked like a ghost. When the judge read the list of charges and asked if she understood, she didn't say yes. She just looked at me like she couldn't believe I'd done it. But I hadn't set her up. She did it all to herself. All I did was bring it into the light. Her bail was denied. The judge called her a manipulative repeat offender with an escalating pattern of personal and financial abuse. She was held without bond until trial, and I wasn't done. I knew Diana didn't have real money, but I still filed a civil suit for damages. Our lawyer helped us sue her for property damage, legal costs, lost work hours, emotional distress, stolen goods, false claims to Carlos's employer, and defamation at my workplace. We won easily. She didn't even show up to fight it. The judge granted us a $42,000 judgment. Of course, she didn't have the money, but we found out something else through that process. She did have an inheritance coming. When her grandmother died 5 years ago, the estate was tied up in probate because of a land dispute, but it had just cleared. Carlos was already aware of it, but Diana figured she'd get it all since she was closest to their grandmother. Wrong. Because of the civil judgment, we were able to file the necessary liens and legal paperwork to claim the inheritance once it was distributed. The whole process took about 4 months, but eventually we seized it. All of it. Every single penny of her $42,000 inheritance went straight to paying the court order. We didn't keep a dime. The amount exactly matched our judgment. I didn't keep a dime. I let Carlos decide what to do with it. He donated most of it to a charity that helps men escape family abuse and fraud. He said if Diana had grown up in a better home, maybe she wouldn't have turned out this way. But someone else can still get a shot. But Diana's spiral didn't stop there. With her name burned, her inheritance gone, and her scams exposed, her online record followed her everywhere. That video from the police dragging her out, it went viral on Facebook, posted by our neighbor's teenage son. It got shared by a landlord protection group, a scam buster subreddit, and even a local news site. Every future employer, landlord, or date who Googled her would find that video. And those fake reviews she wrote about me. We traced them all, sent documentation to Google, and had them removed. But we took it further. We filed a harassment claim with Google's legal team and linked it to the criminal case. Now the accounts and IP addresses she used are flagged on multiple platforms. She can't create new accounts using the same devices or internet connections without them getting auto-flagged for review. She became a digital ghost. No place to hide online. Every trace led back to her screw-ups. Carlos and I fixed up the house. We got new locks, a new security system, even repainted the room she had touched. It was about starting fresh. One afternoon, while we were clearing out old files, Carlos sat down on the couch next to me and said, "You know, if you hadn't stood your ground, she might have really broken us." I looked at him and said, "She tried and she lost. But the truth, I almost broke too. There were nights I questioned myself, wondered if saying no to that loan started all this. If maybe I should have just let her sleep on the couch one more time. But then I'd remember her standing in my house wearing my shirt telling me I wasn't family. That was never about money. That was about control." Diana's now serving an initial 18-month sentence. Not in some cushy rehab-style jail either. County lockup with real consequences. She'll have a criminal record for the rest of her life. She'll never rent a place without a background check showing fraudulent real estate scheme. She'll never get a legit job without the theft charges popping up and her big break dreams dead. But the consequences kept rippling out even after she was locked up. About 6 months into her sentence, September of the following year, we got a call from Jessica. Turns out, Diana had been running similar scams in other states. The FBI had gotten involved because she'd crossed state lines with her rental fraud schemes. Remember that woman from Jersey who sent the $800 deposit Jessica asked during one of our coffee catch-ups? Well, she wasn't the only one. Diana had been running fake rental ads in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. The feds found at least 12 victims, all sending money for houses that weren't really for rent. The investigation revealed Diana had stolen photos from legitimate real estate listings and created fake rental ads across multiple platforms. She'd collected over $28,000 in deposits from unsuspecting families, an average of about $2,300 per victim, which makes sense for rental deposits in our area. Many of them were desperate to find housing quickly. Some were single mothers, recent graduates, elderly couples, downsizing people who couldn't afford to lose that money. Each victim had to testify either in person or via video call. Carlos and I attended some of the hearings, watching those people describe how Diana's scam had affected them. One woman had to move back in with her abusive ex because she couldn't afford another deposit. A young man missed his college enrollment deadline because he was scrambling to recover the money. It made me realize how deep Diana's damage went. The federal charges added another 30 months to her sentence. Diana went from county jail to federal prison, and the media picked up the story. Local woman sentenced for multi-state housing fraud ring ran in 3 different newspapers. Her mugshot was everywhere. Carlos took it harder than I expected. One evening, about 6 months after the federal sentencing, I found him sitting on our back deck staring at his phone. "What's eating at you?" I asked, settling into the chair next to him. He showed me his screen. It was a news article about Diana, but the comment section was what had him shaken. People were calling her a master manipulator, a predator, speculating about her childhood and what made her this way. "Did I miss something?" he said quietly. "All those years growing up with her, was I blind to who she really was?" I understood his guilt. Carlos is the kind of man who sees the best in people, sometimes to a fault. He'd spent years making excuses for Diana's behavior, chalking it up to bad luck or immaturity. Now he was questioning everything. "You were being a good brother," I told him. "You couldn't have known she was capable of this." But the truth was more complicated. Over the next few weeks, as Carlos started opening up about their childhood patterns, emerged that we both overlooked. Diana had always been manipulative, just on a smaller scale. She'd convinced Carlos to lie to their parents about her grades, her whereabouts, her boyfriends. She'd borrowed money from his piggy bank as kids and never paid it back. She'd stolen his girlfriend in high school by spreading lies about him cheating. "I think I trained myself not to see it," Carlos admitted one night. Every time she did something awful, Mom would say, "That's just Diana. She doesn't mean it. She's family," so I learned to ignore it too. The realization was painful for him, but it was also freeing. For the first time, Carlos stopped carrying guilt about Diana's situation. He stopped wondering if there was something more he could have done to help her. Meanwhile, the collateral damage from Diana's schemes kept surfacing. Her friend circle, what little she had completely imploded. Turns out she'd been lying to them too. Borrowing small amounts of money with sob stories about emergency car repairs or medical bills. When the news broke about her arrest, several people came forward with their own stories of being scammed by Diana. One woman, Maria, reached out to us directly through Facebook. Diana had convinced her that she was starting a nonprofit to help struggling single mothers and had collected donations that never went to any charity. Maria had given her $1,200 thinking she was helping other women in need. "I feel so stupid," Maria wrote in her message, but she was so convincing. She had me believing she was this reformed person trying to give back. We connected Maria with our lawyer, and she was able to file her own civil suit. She never got her money back. Diana had nothing left to take, but she said the closure of seeing Diana face consequences was worth it. The other revelation that came out during the federal investigation was how long Diana had been planning to target us specifically. Investigators found notebooks in her belongings dating back over a year filled with observations about our routines, our finances, even sketches of our house layout. She'd been watching us, studying us, learning when we came and went. When Carlos traveled for work when I worked overtime, she knew exactly when to make her move. The notebooks contained other disturbing details. She'd written down the names and ages of our neighbors, our license plate numbers, even the times our mail was delivered. She'd researched property records to understand exactly how much equity we had in the house. One entry dated 6 months before the loan request simply said, "I think she's so much better than family." Time to teach her a lesson about what really matters. Reading that made my skin crawl. This wasn't a desperate woman making impulsive decisions. This was a calculated attack that had been in the works for over a year. The psychological evaluation ordered by the court painted an even more disturbing picture. Diana was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. The psychologist's report noted her complete lack of empathy for victims and grandiose sense of entitlement. The defendant shows no genuine remorse for her actions. The report stated her primary concern appears to be anger at being caught rather than guilt over the harm caused to others. Even in prison, Diana continued to cause problems. She was written up multiple times for trying to manipulate other inmates, attempting to start gambling rings, and even trying to seduce a guard. She spent several stretches in solitary confinement. The letters she sent us became increasingly unhinged as her sentence progressed. In one, she claimed we'd ruined her life and that she was going to make us pay when she got out. In another, she alternated between threatening us and begging Carlos to visit her, saying she'd changed and found God. We forwarded all the threatening letters to Jessica and our lawyer. They became part of a new harassment case that extended her sentence by another 6 months. Meanwhile, our lives steadily improved. I didn't just get promoted to shift supervisor. I was asked to help train new employees and even spoke at a regional conference about workplace safety. The recognition felt good, but what felt better was the respect I'd earned from my colleagues who watched how I handled the Diana situation. Carlos thrived at work too. His boss, impressed by how he'd navigated the crisis, put him in charge of a major client account. The pay raise meant we could finally afford to take that trip to Ireland we'd been talking about for years. Our marriage, if anything, grew stronger. Going through something that intense together, having each other's backs when everything felt like it was falling apart, created a bond that felt unbreakable. We started seeing a couples counselor not because we were having problems, but because we wanted to process what we'd been through and make sure we came out even stronger. The counselor helped us understand how trauma can bring couples together or tear them apart, depending on how they handle it. You two chose to face the threat as a team rather than turning on each other, she observed. That's not as common as you might think. We also made practical changes. We upgraded our security system, added cameras, and even got a dog, a German Shepherd named Tank, who's friendly to people we invite over, but definitely intimidating to anyone who shouldn't be there. Most importantly, we set new boundaries with Carlos's family. His mother, who'd enabled Diana for years, initially tried to guilt Carlos into visiting Diana in prison or putting money on her commissary account. She's still your sister, she'd say, during tense phone calls. And I'm still her victim, Carlos would reply. That doesn't just disappear because we share DNA. Eventually, Carlos's mother came around. She started seeing a therapist herself and began to understand how her enabling had actually hurt Diana by preventing her from facing real consequences for her actions. The ripple effects of Diana's crimes extended beyond our immediate circle. The machine shop where I work updated their background check policies after my boss realized how easily someone with criminal intent could have infiltrated our workplace. Carlos's company did the same, implementing more thorough screening procedures. Our neighborhood association started a community watch program after our neighbors realized how long Diana had been surveilling our street without anyone noticing. Property crimes in our area dropped significantly once people started paying more attention to suspicious behavior. As Diana's release date approached, she still had over 2 years left to serve by this point, putting her release sometime in late 2027. We consulted with our lawyer about additional protective measures. We learned about victim notification programs that would alert us when she was released, transferred, or if she violated any terms of her eventual probation. The system isn't perfect, our lawyer warned us. But you've built a strong paper trail. If she tries anything again, she'll go away for a very long time. We also talked about the possibility of moving, but ultimately decided against it. This was our home. We'd worked too hard for it, put too much of ourselves into it to let Diana's memory drive us away. Instead, we focused on building the life we wanted. We started hosting regular dinners for friends, the kind of gatherings we'd been too stressed to enjoy when Diana was constantly causing chaos. We planned future projects for the house, talked about maybe getting a second dog, discussed whether we wanted to travel more or focus on local adventures. I used to believe family was everything. Now, I believe this. Family is earned, not owed, and anyone who tries to take what you built, they'd better be ready for the storm that follows. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come with fists or shouting. Sometimes it comes in court papers, frozen bank accounts, and the cold silence of a locked door they'll never open again. And that's exactly what Diana got. But more than that, she lost the chance to be part of something real, something built on love and respect and hard work. She threw away a family that would have been there for her if she'd just been willing to be human. Her loss was our gain. And every day that we wake up in our peaceful home, every quiet evening we spend together, every laugh we share without looking over our shoulders, that's the best revenge of all.